Hi everybody, welcome back to the BizTech Academy. Steve here, and today I'm going to show you how to take poorly formatted or corrupt data like this and convert it into something that's presentable to management like this. Okay, without further ado, let's crack on. Okay, so we have our workbook open and we have two sheets. We have one sheet called raw, and this is all of our raw data, the corrupted data or the poorly formatted data that we've got to clean up. And we have another tab called cleaned, where I've just copied over that raw data. We're now going to work on and clean up. So the first thing to do is to have a look at the data itself. And as you can see, most of it is now cramped up in very small columns. The data is too big for the columns we have. We need to make them wider. So we'll just highlight all of the columns and double click on the top to right size the columns to the particular data. And we can see what looks like some employee data. So we have some names, departments they work for, the date they joined the company, the city they live in, the country code and the phone number, and some salary information. We can see that the name data is poorly formatted, some in uppercase, some in lowercase. There's some incorrect white spacing around the departments. The date joined are all in different formats. We have some cities, but we don't have the countries. We have country codes and phone numbers not joined together. We also have some salary data, which is fine, but I don't know what currency it's in and what it really means for US dollar, because we're an American company and we need everything converted into US dollars. So we need to do some work on formatting this up. So we'll do it one by one and we'll walk across all the columns. To start with, we'll look at the name. So with the name, we just need to convert the name itself into all correct case. So we need a capital letters for the beginning of the first name and the surname, and we also need everything else in lowercase. So to do that, we'll use the proper function. So the first thing to do is insert a column and make some room. So we'll just highlight the column C, and then we'll do Control and Shift plus as a shortcut to insert that column. And then we'll use the proper function by doing equal proper, open the parenthesis, and highlight the word that we want to be corrected. And what this particular function will do is we'll take the number of words, and we have Alex and Taylor here, and it will make the first letter in each of the words an uppercase and everything else lowercase. So we close the parenthesis and press enter. You can now see Alex Taylor is correctly formatted. So we'll just copy that down, double it down, and you can see now that all the names are correct. Great. So we can just drag the name label off, and we can actually now just delete all of this. And we'll just press Control and minus. Oh, but there's an error, and that's because there is now no reference for that proper function. As you can see in the cell here, we have a proper function, but we've deleted the names, the original names that the search is for. So we'll just undo that. And what we now need to do is take those names, and we need to copy them and paste them as values. So we'll just do Command or Control C, then Control and Alt or Control and Command V to bring up the Paste Special menu, and then press Values and OK. And you can now see in the formula bar that these are all values and not formulas. So now we can safely delete column B, and we have the names correctly formatted. Great. If you remember rightly from the original file I showed you, we also had first name and last name split. So we need to add those in. So we'll just add in two more columns. So again, Control and Shift and plus, and we'll do that twice to add the columns in. And we want first name and last name. So we're just going to type in Alex for the first name here on the first one, and then Taylor as the surname. And then we're going to go to the next cell below. To do this, we're going to use the flash fill shortcut. And to do that, we use the command Control E. And what this does, if I just press Control E now, you can see it recognizes that the cell above, Taylor, was the second word in column B. That was the pattern, so it's just copied that down. So if I do the same in column C, so the one below where it says Alex, it should recognize that it's the first word in the adjacent cell B. So if I just do Control E, it now lists all of those names. So we now very quickly have the first name and the last name just copied down with a shortcut, flash fill shortcut, Control and E. Brilliant. Move on to department. And what we now have is we have a department with lots of white space. You can see ahead of the marketing in white space. In sales, there's some white space at the front. Legal, there's some white space at the front. It may well be the case that there's white space also at the end of each of these words, but we can't see that. So we just need to remove the white space. And to do that, we'll use the trim function. So we'll just insert a column again, Control and Shift and plus, and we're going to say equal trim. And what this function does, it removes all the white space around the word or words that are within that particular cell. So in marketing, we're just going to click on the cell, press and close the parenthesis, And you can see now that marketing has been moved across and we have the white space removed. We'll just copy this down. And again, you can see all that white space is gone. We just need to replace this into a value. So we'll copy it again, and then we'll do Control and Alt or Control and Command V to open up the Paste Special menu. And we'll just make these values so that when we delete this particular old data, we won't lose the new data. We'll just drag the department across. And now we'll just use Control and minus to get rid of that column. And now we have our name, first name, last name, and department all formatted correctly, which is great. So the date join. So we have dates here, which is fine, but they're just in different formats. All we need to do is make these now a similar format or the same format. So we'll just highlight all the data, and we'll now do Control and 1 to open up the formatting menu. And we want to go to date, but in the date, I actually don't like many of these formats. So I'm going to go to custom, and I'm going to choose a format that is day, month, 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 and then year, and just press OK. And what this does now, it converts it with a day, 3 letters for the month, and then the year. Just make this slightly smaller. So now we have our dates formatted, which is great. Okay, we have a city now, which is fine. This is the city that these people are based in, but we don't have a country. It's not very clear which country they come from. So we're going to need to find that. So we'll add another column in here where we're going to put the country. So again, Control and Shift and plus to add the column in. Put a heading country. And I'm going to use some functions within the Data tab to find the country now. And this is really quite cool. So if we go to Data here, and you can see we have these 3 boxes here. I have something that says Stocks, Currencies, and Geography. And what this does, it provides data sheets for certain data that's available. So in this particular case, some geography. So what we're going to do is go to London, and I'm going to click on this Geography tab here, and it'll come up with a data sheet for London. And if I look here, there's a drop-down menu, and there's various different bits of information around the City of London. So we have some administration data, we have an area, we have a country, image, some location, geography, latitude, and so on, leaders, etc., etc. And we want the country. So we'll just click on the country, and what this does, it places in the next adjacent blank cell the country that's associated with London. So in this case, United Kingdom. So we can do this for everything. So we're now going to highlight all of these rest of these cities. Press the geography, and this will now churn along, and it will give us this data tabs against each one. We'll just make these columns slightly bigger, and then we'll just copy this search function down here, and now it has all of the relevant countries to these particular cities. So New York is the United States, Paris is France, Dubai, UAE, and so on, which is fantastic. That was a really, really quick way of just looking up the country for a particular city that we want, because in our particular company and our employee data, we always have the city and the country logged down for various reasons. The next thing we have is the phone numbers, and we have 2 different parts of the phone number here. We have the country code, and we also have the phone number itself within that country. But we also have in the country code, we have the list name of the city that they're in, which we actually don't need. What we want to do is pull together the 44 in this case for the UK and the UK number. So the first thing to do is to get rid of these countries. Now you could just go in and just delete everyone if you want to do manually, but if you've got 1,000 of these to do, you're not going to do that. It's a pain. So what you can do is you can just highlight it all and go up to the Home tab, and then where it says Find and Select, go into Replace. I'm just going to delete this because this is what I used earlier on. But where you have these 2 blank spaces, which is Find What and Replace What. And what we want to do here, we want to find everything that's in these parentheses, and we want to delete them with, well, actually nothing. We want to delete them with the blank space. So to do that, you have to open the parenthesis, and then you use a star or an asterisk. And that asterisk then basically tells Excel to look for everything inside the parenthesis. So we close the parenthesis, and it now says, find everything inside the parenthesis, and then replace it with, then we could replace it with something, but we're going to replace it with actually nothing. We're going to leave it blank, and we're going to say replace all. And what will happen here is made 20 replacements, and as you can see, it's removed all of the parentheses and left the 44s. But it's also removed the plus sign, which is something we wanted on here. So we're going to now need to add that plus sign back in. So to do that, we're going to use the concatenate function. So we'll just make another column. So again, Control and Shift and plus. And then we're going to use concatenate to add the plus sign before the number, in this first case, 44. So we're going to put equal and concatenate, tab it across, and then we want to add in a plus sign. So we put it in speech marks with inverted commas, we're going to put plus, and then we're going to put a comma, a separator, and we want that in front of 44. So we're going to highlight that cell, close the parenthesis, and press enter, and now you can see we have this plus 44. We can copy this down. Great, and we have this with everything now, all the country codes. But again, these are referenced to the country codes, so we need to copy these and save them as values. So Command or Control C, and then Shift and Command or Shift and Alt and V for the paste special, and then values. And now we have all the plus signs back in there. You can ignore these green labels for now, they're just not relevant to this particular exercise. They're just telling you that the formula is slightly different to the previous cell. So we'll just drag across country code till we've got the title there, and then we can delete with our control and minus, we can delete the previous number, and we now have our country code. Great. What we now need to do, though, what would be useful is to have the country code ahead of the phone number. So, for example, +44 and then a space, and then 2012234567, which is the phone number. So again, to do that, we'll just insert another column. So just Control and Shift plus, and then we're going to have, we'll call it phone again, phone number, and we're going to have a concatenate function again. So equal concat, tab it across, and we want this +44 at the beginning. Then we want to put a space. So we put a comma as a separator, then inverted commas space, close inverted commas, because we're inserting that space. And then we're going to put another separator, and we want the number from cell K3. We're going to put that in place, close the parenthesis, press enter, and now you can see if I make this row, the column bigger, sorry, +44, and we have the phone number. So we have the phone number with the plus sign and the number itself all brought in together. So we can just copy that down, and now we have all the phone numbers. Again, we need to copy and paste these as values. So Control C, and then Control and Command, or Control and Alt V for paste special values. Okay, and now we can just delete these two columns with our Control and minus, and we now have our phone numbers in place. Brilliant. So the last thing we need to deal with is the salaries. So the salary, let's first of all make it with a comma format, so it looks a little bit more professional. Get rid of the decimal places. Well, what we ultimately want to do is convert this into US dollars, because we're an American company and we budget in US dollars, and we ultimately need to know what the US dollar amounts are. The problem is we don't know actually what the currency is for these particular salaries. We know the country, but we don't know the currency. So what we can actually do is we can go back to these countries here, and we can go back down to our drop-down menu, and there's a list here, an item here that says currency code. And if we click on that, then the next blank adjacent cell, which in this particular case is this cell here, K3, you will have the currency code, GBP, which is just what we want. So we're actually going to copy that across. And now we have the different currencies. So euro for France, Chinese yen for China, euro for France again, and Turkish lira and so on for Turkey. And we have all that in place. So great. We just need that. I'm going to copy that and make it a value again, because I don't need it to be linked to that particular cell. So again, Control C, and then we'll open up the Paste Special menu, put them as values, and we have that as values, which is great. Now what we need to do is to make these currency pairs so that we can look up the currency or the FX rate for those particular pairs. And how Excel does that, it needs to look at a currency format that says something like the initial currency, a /, and then the second currency. So in this case, it will be GBP /USD. So again, what we can do here is use the concatenate function to add in that / in USD. So we just do equal concatenate, and then we take the GBP, then we put a separator with a comma, and then we use the speech marks and just put in the / and USD, and then close the speech marks and close the parentheses. And now you can see we've got GBP USD. And if we just copy this down, we now have that USD sort of prefix, if you like, or suffix, I should say, at the end of each of those original currencies. And with that, we can use, we go back to our data tab, we can use our currencies category here to put some live currency data. So we just click on that. It says there's an alert, and there's an alert because this is a function, it's the concatenate function. We need to convert it to values. So again, we'll just Control C it, and then with it all highlighted, Control Alt or Control Command V to get the Paste Special menu up, and we'll make it values. And we now have all of these, as you can see, with the values if we look at the formula bar here. So what we can do now is highlight that again, go back to our currencies, click currencies, And now it comes up and it's a little sort of building here, and it shows, for example, on here, it shows a drop-down menu, and it has against that drop-down menu, if you look down at the bottom, close to the bottom, it has the price. And you can put the price in place, and it gives you then the price for that particular currency pair. We're just going to make this a little bit more decimal places because I think that's relevant to currencies. So we'll just make it maybe 4 decimal places. Actually, just highlight these, sorry. Yeah. Now, what you can also see, though, is that for the USD side, it's actually got an error because we're converting USD into USD, which we know is a conversion of 1, and it doesn't recognize that mix. So we just need to delete these particular areas for now. We'll come back to that in a second. So we have 3 lots of USD here. We'll just get rid of those. So the final calculation is then to take the conversion rate. We'll just have the FX pair heading and the, FX pair, and we'll also have the FX rate. And then to convert the salary, therefore, in that currency to US dollars, all we do is take the salary and then multiply it by the rate. That then gives you a US dollar rate. We'll just get rid of the decimal places, copy this down, and as you can see now, we have everything converted into US dollars with a live exchange rate, which is fantastic. We've just got these gaps to deal with, but we'll do that in a second. So to get rid of that, so let's look at this particular range here. So we have all these gaps here, 3 gaps that are US dollar, and they're not relevant. So we just have them really not applicable for this calculation. So we would just go into our Find and Select tab here on the top right, go to Special, where it says blanks, click on that, and then it just highlights the blanks. Now, without clicking on any of them, just put in what you want to put in. I'm going to put NA for not applicable, and then press Command or Control on a PC and return, and it then fills all those gaps up with that particular phrase, and we've got not applicable. Here, in these numbers here, we're going to change it with 1 because we want the multiplier for the US dollar to be 1 because 1 US dollar equals 1 US dollar. So again, we'll go back up to Find and Select. We'll go to Special. We'll go to Blanks, highlight the blanks, put in the number 1, and then Control or Command Enter. Now we have our ones and our calculation. So 65,000 salary times 1 because it's all US dollar is 65,000. And now we have our calculation in place. And that's the salary, US dollar. Brilliant. Okay, so if I just make this slightly smaller so we can see the whole table, what you can now see is that we have all of our data, almost all of it, formatted. Let's see, there's quite a lot of data here, so I just need to make this a little bit more smaller. 1 second. I'm just going to get rid of column A because we don't need it. And we'll just make this slightly smaller, and we'll also put all the columns the right size so that we make a bit of space. And there we are. So we have our data formatted. What we have is we have our name, we have our first name, last name, we have the department, the date joined with the city and the country, phone number of the salary, and then we have the conversion of the salary to US dollars. We actually do need to keep these particular monuments or these sources for the FX rate, but what we don't need is the sources and the tables for these particular countries now. So we can look at these and we can control and copy them and make them values. So again, paste special into values. And then if you right click and go to data type and convert to text, we can then get rid of these little tables that are next to them. Okay, so that's perfect. We have all that in place now. The only thing we need to do is to make sure that we're refreshing the FX rate as often as we can, because that changes, and we might need that change for the salary data. To do that, you would actually use the Data tab and press Refresh Data. There's a Refresh Data tab here, button here, and if you click on that, you can see with these little monuments that they all tick around. So as you press it, they all go around, they whiz around, they refresh, and they come up with a new FX rate depending on what the market is saying at that particular time. But that's a bit of a pain to do. So what we can do is we can actually record a macro here and create a button that does that, and that's quite cool. So we'll just add in a couple of rows. Again, Control and Shift plus for the rows. And then we're going to go to our Developer tab. Now, if you haven't got the Developer tab, if it doesn't show on your laptop, then you'll need to make it live. And to do that, if you're on a Windows machine, you will just right-click on your ribbon here, and a drop-down menu will occur, and it will say something like update ribbon or amend ribbon, something like that. And it'll open up then a window, which I'll go to now. I'm actually on a Mac, so to get to that same window, I actually go to these 3 dots in the green bar, I go to more commands, and then I go to ribbon. And then you can see here, and this is what you would see on a Windows machine as well. On the right-hand side, there's a list of the actual ribbon tabs, and you'll see towards the bottom, there's one called Developer. If it's not clicked or ticked, tick it, and then press save. And then ultimately what will happen is that on the top bar here, you'll have a developer tab. And in that developer tab, when you click on it, you'll have the option to record a macro. And what we're going to do here is record a macro. Now, to record a macro, all you're actually doing is recording a series of events. And we're just going to record us updating that data, that FX data. So when we press record macro, it will ask us to name the macro. And we're going to call it refresh and underscore rate or rates. You have to use an underscore because you can't use a gap when you write a macro name. So we're going to call it refresh rates. And when we press OK, you'll see the record macro area here change. So you can see now it says stop recording. That's because we're in the process now of recording a macro. And the macro we want to record is to go to the data tab and press refresh all to get new data. That's all we need, new FX data. That's all we want to do. So we now go back to our developer tab and press stop recording, and we have a macro. If you actually click on the macros area here, you can see now that we have refresh rate is a macro. There's this. If I run it, it refreshes the data here. But I want to assign that to a button. So again, on the developer tab, and again, I'm on a Mac, you can see there's a button tab here. I think on a PC, if you don't see that button straight away, there's an option to press insert. And if you press insert, you'll see that there's a button option there. So if you press on the button, click somewhere roughly where you want it, and I want it just above the FX rate here. And then you need to assign the macro. We're going to assign refresh rates. We press refresh rate, press OK, and then a button comes up. And you can move this wherever you want to. Just move it slightly around here, and then you can click on it and change the name. So I'm going to call it refresh rates. Get rid of the button one bit. When I click away, it now says refresh rate. And if you watch the monuments again, when I press it, the monuments turn around and they refresh. Press it again, and you can see the macro is running behind and it's pressing update data, and it's giving us new FX rates and therefore new salary rates in the US dollar for all of the other particular areas here. Now, the only final thing you need to do is you make sure that the workbook is enabled for macros, because standard Excel workbooks don't run macros. So to do that, all you need to do is to go File and Save As, or Control or Command S, and then when it comes up with saving a file, rename it, and then just go to where it says File Format, scroll down, and look for where it says Excel Macro Enabled Workbook. Click on that, press Save, and it will be a macro enabled workbook, and all the macros will run. And then the final thing to do is just to convert this into a table so that we can play with it if we want to, and also send it over to our management. So just click anywhere on the table, then Command if you want a Mac, or Control if you want a PC, and the letter T. That will highlight the range, press OK, and then we have a table. I'll just change the blues because I'm not a big fan of these stripes. So we'll just go for that. Now we have all of our raw data that we had previously all cleaned up and ready to send on to our manager. And there you have it. In a few simple steps, we cleaned up that data and made it presentable for management. If you did like the video and you found it useful, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel and press the alert button. We do release new videos most days. But in the meantime, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.